today.
The former Tory MP, Harvey Proctor, says he is completely innocent of allegations ranging from murder to sexually abusing children. Accusations, he says, which have wrecked his life. He's been interviewed for a second time by police investigating the claims made by a man known by the pseudonym of Nick. But Mr Proctor poured scorn on the accusations and on the officers investigating claims of historic child abuse by powerful men. We'll hear from him in a moment after this report by our Home Affairs correspondent, Darshana Soni.
He said he had come to take on his accusers in what would be an extraordinary press conference. A former Tory MP linked to child sex abuse hit out at the allegations and against those investigating them.
I am a homosexual. I am not a murderer. I'm not a paedophile or pederast. The paranoid police have pursued a homosexual witch hunt on this issue, egged on by a motley crew of certain sections of the media and press and a number of Labour members of Parliament and a ragbag of internet fantasists.
Mr Proctor refused to speak to the press after his court appearance.
Harvey Proctor is no stranger to scandal. He was the MP for Billericay, but stepped down in 1987 after initially denying but then pleading guilty to acts of gross indecency. It followed a sex scandal involving what were then underage male prostitutes.
Mr Proctor sincerely apologised to the court and promised it would not happen again.
Since then, the age of consent has been lowered. Mr Proctor believes that it's because of his past that his name has now been linked to an alleged Westminster sex ring. In a highly unusual statement today, Mr Proctor outlined for the first time details of that ring given to him by the police in a disclosure document.
I now wish to share with you in detail the uncorroborated and untrue allegations. Anyone of a delicate or nervous disposition should leave the room now.
He went on to list a grim and horrific set of accusations made against him, including 2 murders, some of which it's claimed took place at this apartment block near Westminster during sex parties which were attended by other MPs.
And it's here that Harvey Proctor is accused of raping and torturing a young boy. No specific dates are given for the allegations, but they're said to have occurred between 1978 and 1984. But Mr Proctor claims he's been singled out because he's gay and accuses the police of a homosexual witch hunt. Controversially, he claims that we should stop referring to those who make allegations of historic sex abuse as victims, and instead we should use the more neutral term complainants.
Mr Proctor confirmed that the former Prime Minister Ted Heath and Leon Britton were among his alleged co-conspirators. The allegations were made by a man known only as Nick, who gave an anonymous interview to an online news agency, Exero, and then later to the BBC. Mr Proctor criticised the agency and others in the media for publishing what he called speculation.
Was it irresponsible of you to publish his name before he'd been even arrested or charged?
When we did our initial stories on Exero, we didn't name who was the person who was accused, and it was only when, in fact, the police took the first concrete measure in terms of raiding his house back in March that we found out about it, and we did publish his name because we thought it was of enormous interest that this former Conservative MP had had his house raided as part of Operation Midland.
Mr Proctor called on the head of Operation Midland, which is leading the murder inquiry, to resign, along with the head of the Metropolitan Police. He says their handling of such a sensitive matter has left him deeply distressed. But many alleged victims of child sex abuse said today they too have been left distressed by his statement. Darshana Soni, Channel 4 News.
Well, in his only television interview, Harvey Proctor came into our studios this afternoon, and I asked him why he's decided to make these most serious allegations public.
I got angry and fed up at the drip, drip, drip approach of information getting onto the media about what I was supposed to have done or not done. I thought it was best if I revealed all so people, the press, the media, individuals can make their own judgment.
Just to be clear, the police said to you in interview that you were being accused of the murder and sexual abuse and rape of boys in the presence of the heads of the security services, Edward Heath, and senior politicians?
Yes.
And how did you react to that statement?
Well, I knew I had not done any of the things that this person called Nick has alleged. I can't possibly believe that the other people cannot possibly have done these things either.
So did you take them seriously?
I said after a while, the first interview lasted over 6 hours. It got to the point where I had to say to the police, you are playing a press game here. You don't believe this for one moment.
And their reaction?
We are not here to answer your questions.
But what is it you think they've done wrong? I mean, somebody goes to the police, makes horrific allegations about you. They clearly have to call you in and ask you questions.
There is no evidence other than the uncorroborated statements of one person who remains anonymous, appears on television with a blacked-out face, and who is dubbed with an actor's voice. And the police superintendent in charge of Operation Midland goes on television and says, before interviewing me, that Nick's evidence is credible and true, something that no police officer would have done on any other investigation.
I'm still not really clear why you're so angry with them. I mean, beyond the delay.
Well, I have to say, if you were alleged to have committed all these horrible things, you would be angry.
Well, what impact has it had on you?
It's lost me my job. It has wrecked 28 years of my life of rehabilitation since I left the House of Commons in 1987. It has meant that I've had to move home. It is something that I think about every moment of the day.
You asked the police to interview you. Why?
For months, the police would not tell me precisely what I was supposed to have done. It was a Kafkaesque situation. It now has changed, now that I know what I'm supposed to have done, in cahoots with the likes of Edward Heath and Leon Britton, into black farce.
Do you believe there was a Westminster paedophile or sex abuse ring of any kind?
My gut feeling is that there wasn't. I was certainly not part of it if there was.
So why do you think your name was in this list of people? It was presumably because of your history.
It's an easy target. I'm an easy target, aren't I? In 1987, I pleaded guilty to 4 charges of gross indecency concerning the age of consent. I thought somebody I'd been with was over the age of 21. He turned out to be 19.
And there was a 17-year-old as well?
Actually, I do not know whether I went with that person or not. My lawyer advised me to plead guilty to all of the charges for legal reasons. I genuinely thought that they were over the age of 21. The age of consent is now 18, came down to 18 and is now 16.
Did you always ask?
Yes.
Right, but if you may have, well, you ended up pleading guilty to sexual activity with a 17-year-old, so we have to assume that you did have sex with a 17-year-old.
Well, you can assume that I pleaded guilty to charges of gross, and I made it quite clear at the press conference today so that there could be no mistake. I'm not hiding that.
Well, we can also assume, presumably, that wasn't the only instance of you paying young prostitutes for sex.
That is a million miles away. That consensual activity is a million miles away from what is being alleged against me now.
Well, you see, you call it consensual activity, but we do have to examine this because it's why your name clearly has been brought into this. Were you not part of a rather abusive process of teenage boys who must have been in pretty desperate situations themselves often, and you were paying them for sex? You know, was that really consensual between an older member of Parliament and
I wasn't
teenage boys?
I was quite a younger member.
Well,
of
you were in your
Parliament
late 30s, 40s.
In 1980...
You were old enough to be their father.
In 1987, I was 40.
Yeah, you were old enough to be their dad. And you were paying them for sex.
In 1987, I was 40. I was meeting people in their 20s and 30s.
Well, and their teens.
Only not knowing.
I assume the case you were prosecuted for wasn't the only time you were paying young men for sex.
I've not commented on my sexual proclivities or activities, because I believe that to be private.
But the newspapers...
And I don't, if I can finish, I don't go around asking other people what they do in their bedroom, including you. And I don't think, as long as the activity is legal, that it should be discussed in private.
Well, it wasn't legal, that's the point. I mean, that's why I'm asking you about it.
I didn't know it was illegal until Sir David told me.
Well, as you found out, ignorance isn't a defence in the law. I mean, what I'm trying to find out is...
And immediately I pleaded guilty.
So you are sure, even though you didn't know you were having sex with a 17-year-old, you're sure you didn't have sex with anyone younger?
Yes.
I mean, that doesn't sound possible. How can you be sure if you didn't know about the 17-year-old?
I certainly was not doing the things that have been stated I was doing in these allegations. I have not murdered anyone. I have not sexually abused children.
A lot of these allegations concern Dolphin Square.
Yes.
So what did you do in Dolphin Square? Did you pay prostitutes in Dolphin Square?
Nothing sexually at all in Dolphin Square. I had a meeting with a general in Dolphin Square in the presence of a secretary, a girl secretary, in the days when typing was typing. I did not go to Dolphin Square to indulge in sexual parties.
And, you know, the trouble is, you know, at the time of the 1980s case, you also then called the allegations monstrous, and you were then, of course, convicted. So why do you think people should believe you now?
Yeah, because at the time, the press were trying to out me as a homosexual and a Conservative Member of Parliament. I wasn't prepared to be outed as a gay Member of Parliament. I wanted to keep that private, not because I was ashamed of it. I just didn't think being a homosexual had anything to do with the job I was doing as a Member of Parliament. And there were no out gay MPs at that time. It would have been suicide. You'd be signing your death warrant as a Conservative Member of Parliament to say that you were a homosexual.
So you were lying then to protect your privacy, is what you're saying?
I wasn't lying because of the offences. I didn't know I committed offences.
Well, do you have any empathy for the people who are making the allegations? Because they're clearly very disturbed. They seem to have gone through something terrible, whether it involved the people named or not.
You have read my statement, and you will see there, right at the start of the statement, that I had absolute full support and sympathy for the genuine child sex victims. I don't know the motive of Nick at the moment. I'm not told his name. I'm not shown a photograph of him other than when he was 12. Could be anyone. Didn't ring any bells for me at all. So no, I don't know of these allegations. I don't know the basis from where they've come. I really don't.
Harvey Proctor, thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed for interviewing me. Thank you.